Well, it's another brilliant chapter from Tyler as he opens the subject of praying for the lost and the hard work and the labour of praying for those who don't yet know Christ. He opens the chapter with that inspiring story from D.L. Moody, who wrote a list of 100 people and prayed through for each one by name. 96 coming to know Jesus, and then the last 4 at his funeral. I remember hearing that story as a student and devoting myself to praying for my friends in halls. I wrote a list of them. It wasn't quite 100, and I prayed for them every day. I laboured away in prayer and saw nothing. And then about 10 years later, in our church in London, one of them walked in and shared the story how she'd come to Christ. You cannot imagine the joy that brought me. I committed 7 years ago to be praying for each person on our street. I've managed it most days ever since. Haven't seen any of them yet come to know Jesus, and that's the challenge of this chapter. I did do the funeral of one of the members of our street, one of our neighbours, and discovered that she did have a faith, which was very moving to discover that, and her son is following Jesus. So we recognise and wrestle the challenge in this, that not all of us get the hit rate like D.L. Moody of 96% and then a full 100% after we die. Many of us have prayed for family, friends, neighbours, colleagues for many years and not yet seen them come to know Christ. I start this video today by the cenotaph here just because it's a beautiful place, but it's also a memory of the fact that death comes. But it's a death that we need to recognise that there is hope of eternity. And we have the option to make a difference to people's eternal destiny through prayer. And that's what spurs me on to pray for the lost. But as we come to here, we can see behind me the whole city of Manchester and the Cheshire Plain. We can see right across to Staley Bridge and Ashton and Oldham. We can think of the millions of souls there who do not yet know Christ. And we recognise the challenge we face, which is that so many don't yet know Christ. I'm surrounded here by bushes and trees which are dead. And it feels at times when praying for the lost is living in a church that is in decline. Is it really worth it? Do we have to keep going? I found this chapter so challenging because I recognise that is the challenge and tension we live in. That we want to see the lost saved, and we know that they simply by persuasion or clever arguments or good food doesn't bring them. It's the power of the Spirit that brings people to eternal salvation. So how do we keep going in praying for the lost? Well, Tyler shares that incredible image, that biblical picture of praying for the lost as like childbirth. Painful, slow, unglamorous, but it's a prayer that brings new life. God is the God who brings new life. And it urges me on and stirs me on in prayer. I see the vastness of the task. I see the reality of the challenge, but I see the reality that as we pray for the lost, God does move. We've been more devoted to prayer than I think I can remember in the last year or so at St. Chad's, and we're seeing growth, we're seeing salvation, and I know that is not by might, not by power, but by His Spirit. So whether you've got to find that old list of people, whether you're feeling despondent or excited, can I encourage you, keep travailing in prayer for the lost. It is like childbirth. It is painful, it is challenging, it is slow, it is unglamorous. It requires discipline, but the joy when we see those we've prayed for come to know Christ. There's nothing like it. Knowing the difference that it makes when the Spirit of God transforms a life, makes it worthwhile. So press on, friends, and keep praying for those who don't yet know Christ. Pray for the powerful move of the Spirit to see new life. Even when that's hard work for us, it's worth it in the long run.